Okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the August 13th meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. The first item on the agenda is roll call. So if everyone, all of the members would please state your name.
Sue Indelicato, Jeansburg.
John Pierce.
Hillary Perkins.
Brian Bergfeld.
Carol Danke.
Joe Rodriguez.
Renee Tyler. Very good, thank you. And it looks like we have a forum this evening. And oh, here is Angela, just in time. We can hand it over to you, Angela. We're just
okay.
we're just getting ready to take a look at the minutes for approval.
Oh, it does be late. Oh, I know, for a while. And projects initiatives.
I did review the minutes and there are some clarifications and corrections that should be attended to. If anyone else has any comments, we can attend to those as well.
Hello.
Hello.
Would you like to sit in this chair? Okay.
Take the one that's available.
Okay.
Yeah, I just looking at page 2, the paragraph that's fourth from the bottom. Carol Danke has stated this project has been before HPC several times. It was actually ARB. It's been to the Architectural Review Board several times. And then at the end of that paragraph, the commission did suggest that the doors of the garage door be salvaged for future use in other projects on the house. And then let's see, when we're in the next section, page 3, new business. Hillary, you can correct me on this. It says Hillary Perkins ties sustainability to mental justice. Wasn't that social justice?
It was social justice.
Yeah, with social justice. And then there's this comment, Red Shirt Lady suggested focus on explaining things like why a pollinator garden is important and how it helps sustain the planet. That is a little out of context, I think. Presumably I'm the Red Shirt Lady because I said that.
You were, and I didn't know what your name was. And
That's
so
okay.
initially I started transcribing them and I didn't know who anybody was. And I Googled y'all and there was no images on Google. And so then I asked Yolanda to help me out. And so I missed the red shirt.
That's okay. You know what? I thought, I know somebody just got thrown into. They were trying to do the best they could with what they had.
Thank
So,
you. Thank
You
you.
know, I think at our stages in life, we've all been brand new on job.
Right.
And so.
I thought exactly like that.
Google it.
Just to kind of put that in context, the discussion was about how small efforts in education and small actions on the part of individuals, neighborhoods, and groups can contribute to the overall effort of sustainability. And actions, no matter how small, if they're undertaken by a lot of people, they have a big cumulative effect. So that was sort of the overall point. And the thing about planting a pollinator garden and explaining why it's important was just an example of one small effort that people can make. So that just kind of puts that in context.
And you said it's not mental justice, but
Social.
social.
Yeah. Like, yeah, looks like there's been an update on the roster at the beginning. Looks like that's been updated and corrected. So very good.
I move that we accept the minutes as amended.
Oh, are you showing her a high now? Are we going
I will
ahead?
if you want.
Okay, you can.
You want me to do it?
Sure.
Okay,
I just started
Just take care of
because,
the minutes for us.
yeah.
Okay, all right, let's see, what do we do, second, all those in favor of, approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, okay, hearing none, I guess the minutes are approved with those revisions. All right, so. Let's see. We have no public hearings. So that really limits what we have to talk about. That's okay. That's a new one for us recently. We haven't had this that much. Usually
We were saying we canceled June because there was, my daughter's solicitor said, well, nobody wants to tear anything down.
right, in a way, that's not really what we're supposed to be doing.
Oh, I know, I was just saying.
We do other things.
Right, she doesn't know, she just happened to be reading, you know? At least she reads the minutes and she's not here, so that's.
Pay attention.
Right.
Someone does. Okay, so we have the introduction of the new building commissioner.
Hi, I'm Joe,
New-ish,
Oh,
new in a way.
Joe Rodriguez. Yeah, I'm back. I used to be here. I left 4 years ago, so, and I went to Maryland Heights. And now I'm back. So, and I'm glad to be back. I'm very happy to be here.
We're glad to have you. Welcome back.
Thank you.
We used to work together in Mount Hood, it's just, so everybody knows.
And my name is Renee Tyler. I'm the Deputy City Manager of Community Vitality. And I noticed in the last meeting, there were a lot of questions as to what exactly was my role. So I really look forward to meeting each of you guys. And just to give you a bit of an overview of what it is that my role was designed to do and some of the things that we've been working on. So I think as Eric had mentioned, Community Vitality has oversight over public works, planning, and economic development / business attraction. And these are the elements that make a community desirable. So whether we're working with historical preservation or new businesses, old businesses, figuring out ways to continue to maintain the beauty of this lovely city. It all comes under community vitality. So it could be something as, oh my God, we hate potholes. We do not want potholes in Webster Groves. That's important. We want our sidewalks to be even and of the same color. We want our plants up and down this beautiful stretch to look nice. We don't want weeds. So all of those great things fall under me. I've been working really hard and not having so much ability to get outside. So now things are, they're slowing down a little bit. So I'm going outside more. I'm meeting with more citizens, looking at Webster I did a tag along with Joe today. I was in a part of the city I'd never seen before. So learning where I'm working and interacting with citizens, listening to them and just learning where I'm at and assessing the needs and how to respond to those needs. So that's like the quick elevator pitch of what I do. I have a background in public administration. I've been in government for almost 15 years. Before that, I was in the private sector. I lived in New York. I did like the Wall Street. I did portfolio management and all of that. And I actually was in New York for 25 years, the majority of my adult life, and had I had a moment of clarity because I got sick, and I realized that this was an opportunity for me to embark on the things that I really felt called to do, and that's how I got into servant leadership. So I'm really excited about working with each one of you and working with you as we, whether we're looking at preserving houses or sometimes not preserving them, but doing the best things that benefit this beautiful city. So that's a little bit about me.
Somebody like that.
No, I just said.
I was just gonna ask if she had any questions. Yeah. Or anything like that. I love it that you said the color of the sidewalks. It drives me nuts when they do a new repair and it's like a different color. It's kind of like, did you not look at all at what you're doing?
It is in the specs that it's supposed to look like what you took out. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited we have cycles. I live lots of places.
Anyway, okay. Well, thank you very much. Yes, and welcome to Webster Groves.
Thank you.
Okay. And then I guess old business, we have the staff hiring update.
I guess that's me.
Is that you guys?
So I have great news. Starting Monday, we have the new director of Public Works and the new planning director will be starting. We have, I think that council got copies of their resumes. Yeah. So both gentlemen are not new to the St. Louis region. The planning director is joining us from St. Charles County. He currently has oversight of planning and zoning for the county of St. Charles. Our public works director was a former public works director at U City. He was there for 10 years. He also has private experience, and he went to U City out of college, worked there for about 4 years. Then he went into the private sector and he was there. And then he went back to U City and he was there for 10 years. And then for the last 3 or 4 years, he's been back in the private sector. Both of them are very well versed on Webster Groves, our various projects, what we're doing, what we're working on, the development of our comprehensive plan. So, and they both have strong reputations, not just in the region, but within the state. So we're very excited to welcome them on Monday. That also will ease a lot of the burden that I think our commissions and boards, council, and residents have been witnessing, because we have had some turnover. So we're excited about that. There should be another one on here, and I apologize because I wanted Councilwoman Alexander to have an opportunity for an update as well on anything. So I know you're the chair.
Oh, no, that's fine. Go ahead. We're pretty informal.
Yeah.
Well, actually, one of the things that I wanted to just share with you guys is regarding the open position on the Historic Preservation Commission. We had actually 2 people, and both of them looked really good. And I wanted to share them with you to see if you guys, and I think I might be short. There's 2-3 pages each. So that's a whole set. Well, that's a whole set because there's 2 and there's 3
Oh, I
pages
see.
for
Okay.
each.
Oh, I
Just
see
pass
what
the
you're
whole
saying,
thing.
just
Pass the whole
take a
thing
look
around.
at them. Okay, I got it.
Pass it down.
And
Okay.
somebody's
Oh,
gonna
okay, I
have
see
to
what you're
share
doing.
somewhere.
Okay.
This is like all our family dinners.
Do you want a copy?
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
I thought.
John, did you get one?
No, I didn't. Thank you.
Okay, then I go quick and pass it.
Anybody for the last?
Oh, do we have another?
I think,
Okay,
yeah.
Okay, and so I just really wanted to share them with you to see if you guys had a preference of what you're looking for. Or what you think would be a good fit for your board. And both of them just seem to have a good deal of experience, passion regarding historic preservation.
I'll take one.
And I mean, I'll just be honest, for me, when we listened to them and interviewed them in the meeting, for me, it was pretty much a toss up. Because I mean, both of the guys seem to have related experience. So the first gentleman is an engineering consultant, but he's also been really engrossed in, which he doesn't really reflect here. He talked about it. He's been really engrossed in historic preservation and just interest all the way, not only just in real estate and housing, but also in terms of ships. In terms of naval, remember him? Yeah. And I just thought that was really, really interesting. And the other gentleman is an architect, and he's had very similar historic interest and what have you. So, it's kind of like listening to both of them.
Oh.
One of them's name is Randage and the other one is Vassar Elon. Vassar hyphen Elon. So, I don't know if it's, thank God you don't have much on the agenda today. So if you just wanted to kind of look over these real quick and see, any thoughts that you have that you might want to share. Now, one of the things that we are doing is we're going back to them to see if any one of them had interest in in another board. Or the other thing is, I don't know if we were real sure if anybody's term was expiring soon. Is anybody on the board's term expiring soon?
I was curious about which one is an architect. I don't
Yeah.
think that.
I
I didn't hear.
That was,
The Vassar Elon one,
It wasn't-
Jason.
Jason.
It wasn't the one that was.
Yeah, I just didn't see the reference to architecture.
Right, it was the other one.
Says he worked for University of Missouri. He's a doctor of education.
Yeah, but I didn't see
Oh.
architecture. But that's not,
Yeah, I
yeah,
didn't
licensed
remember.
architect, right? Yeah.
And it would be an architect.
I know I'm not crazy, so I thought for sure.
Well, you can't call yourself an architect unless you have a license.
Yeah.
No, it's illegal. Actually, it's illegal to call yourself an architect if you do not have a license.
Well, we have the engineering consultant and
My
that's
husband started architects.
yeah, something having to do with,
Oh, you have to be, yeah.
I think she's just. I think we probably did straight. We said a lot more.
skill sets, right, from teaching, creating, creative.
What do you want from us on these? You want us to?
Just
If we have any input.
Yeah, if you have any
Yeah,
input at
just
all.
any input or any
They're just trying to
preferences or
decide,
whatever, because
how
we're
to-
just right. One of the things that we're doing right now that we'll discuss in the meeting Tuesday is, Marie was, or Laura was gonna go back to, Katie was gonna go back to them and see if either one of them had interest in any other boards.
Okay.
Because it's two and we only have position for
I
one.
don't think we've ever had that situation.
No,
you know,
we don't have that problem here.
Yeah.
Really short-handed because I know that we've been short on people for boards and commissions. So we have two interested applicants. That would be a great idea to see,
Exactly.
both could fill a position.
Right.
So, I mean, you guys can just take these away and take a look at them, and if you have any preference or no, you can just email me and let me know before the meeting, Tuesday. And, my email address, if it's not, well, you can just email, I think it's on the website.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
So, yeah, you can just email me and let me know if you have a preference based upon, what you see here or what have you, and we'll take that into consideration. And again, like I said, we're checking to see if either one of them are interested in any other boards or not. But it was listening to the two, and maybe I misunderstood. I thought for sure one of them said something about being an architect, but maybe I'm thinking about the engineer.
Yeah.
And if we're gonna make a decision, I just wanted to put that in front of you guys and see
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for
if
consulting.
you had a
us.
preference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate it actually, because sometimes it does make a difference where more,
Yeah.
it does matter.
Mhm.
I did see these, I was emailed these too,
Okay.
and when I looked at them, I just sort of felt like, oh no.
Uh-huh.
There's not, anything that stands out. that
Yeah.
says,
And sometimes it's better if you're listening to them. If you get
It
an
is.
opportunity
You get
to
more
talk to them,
information.
you get more information, you get more insight to their interest and what they've done related to this and why they're interested in this.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, sometimes it's not real clear looking at the information, but listening to both of them, they were both pretty impressive with reference to their interest and why they're interested in historic preservation. One of the questions that I asked them each was, I said, when I was my first round as the liaison for the board, one of the painful realities to me is that we really can't stop a demolition. I mean, at the end of the day, property owners have rights and we might be able to delay it. But if somebody is just intent on demolishing their property, they have rights and they can demolish their property. And that was like a crushing blow to me because I've just seen just great properties and people tearing down what seem like just phenomenal properties because they want something bigger or they want something newer or whatever. And so I just asked them what they thought about that. I mean, because you can't make somebody go
Do what you
forward
want.
with a decision that you want them to make and not.
I'm
one
curious
that
what
they
the
want.
response.
Oh, well, so the one gentleman said that, he agrees. He said some places need to be torn down, and he said, but he would hope that maybe if we were able to talk with them with reference to what the historical significance is of the property, and maybe there would be a way that we can educate them on the property, and maybe that might have some impact on their ability. And I didn't use this example, but what was just done with the church, I mean,
I mean,
Bethany.
new church,
yeah.
new congregation.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, those owners were detached from it. They just wanted to be done and whatever. And so by giving it a historical preservation designation, which the owners didn't really want because they thought that might be,
Right.
they thought that might make it difficult for them to sell or whatever. But, but it was this commission that helped drive that. And so there's other things that we look at other than that. But anyway, that's what he was saying. He recognizes people's property rights, but maybe it's an opportunity to educate them.
Who was that? Which one?
That was Randage. And then and Vassar's was similar to it. He seemed a little more sort of committed to trying to help them understand that you shouldn't just destroy property, when there's still value and significance to it from a historical and a neighborhood preservation and historical preservation. So both of them seem pretty passionate about it, but
Like the main difference I see here with one's an engineer and one's a teacher. So I mean, stereotypically, there's a lot of differences between those two approaches to problems.
One's more surgical and one's more theoretical.
Yeah. Did that come up in the interviews?
What the difference between?
In terms of a personality trait for these two guys? Did you see the engineer as more analytical and the other one is more philosophical? And if we look around this table, I don't know what everybody does here. Maybe we could do that and look at maybe where we could do some specialty. I don't know if we have any here on this table.
I have no technical knowledge of architecture or engineering, even though my father's an engineer. I failed him. But I just have a deep love for Webster Groves and the history that is in this little town. So, and I think Jean, well, Jean, you have architectural training. John, I don't know about
No.
you. You're a teacher, right? Are you?
No.
No, you're, oh, okay.
I'm just a retired guy. Always.
He's a man of all
Okay.
trades, let me tell you.
Yeah. But the other thing I noticed was one's lived here around 5 years and the other one's been here 45 years. 45 years is a pretty long time to be.
Historical.
Teacher.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
historical.
It is.
The teacher has been here 45 years.
Yes.
I guess I'm sitting here.
The engineer is
That's
the
interesting.
one, is the ship.
If he was 5
Yeah.
years older, we wouldn't let him tear himself down.
We would fight to protect him.
Good thoughts.
Yeah, it's difficult. Yeah. Minimal.
They're so
information.
different.
And probably both of them would be fine.
I know, and that's what I thought. I really walked away from it feeling like it would be a toss up. You know, I didn't look at it from the standpoint that one might be more surgical and then one more, the engineer
It all
probably.
depends on the project.
I'm sorry,
It all depends on
the project.
project.
Yeah.
That would be a hard.
Yeah, and then even the notion of someone living here 45 years or 5 years,
Mhm.
well, it depends on their take on things.
Yeah.
A new person might look at this like, I moved here because I want it like this. And, you know, the person, which isn't what you expect, might
Right.
be the new person thinks, well, we could do everything better a different way, or
Uh-huh.
whatever. Yeah,
And you'd be
Yeah,
amazed at
yeah.
how often we hear that on the council. It's like, I moved here because,
oh,
you
yeah.
know, and that's
Most
what,
people do.
I don't
move
want
to
anything to
certain-
change. I'm like, well, something needs to change because we need to get a break on these taxes. Okay, so something needs to change. Okay, so
Okay.
anyway,
Well, perhaps.
If one is open to serving on another council.
Yeah.
then it
or
eliminates,
board,
yeah,
Then
Solves the
that
problem.
would solve it, so.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say either one of these would be a good addition.
You don't wanna.
You know, too, I mean, even though we all come from varied backgrounds and skill sets, when we were all going through the historical documentation of the Bethany Lutheran Church, we came in and met here and like a lot of the documents were in Danish and I'm going, oh my gosh, what do we do with this? Sue has a background in German and she's like, well, this kind of means this. And this kind of means this. And I'm like,
A very sketchy background.
Good job.
It was very
I believe
helpful.
you.
It was very helpful.
Yeah.
So, you know, even though we come from diverse backgrounds, there are those times when that I was like, oh gosh, look at what is this? And I had no clue, obviously, but Sue was really well versed in helping sort out what was what. So, you know, I think everybody, regardless of their skill set, there's those moments when in our lifetime, some experience suddenly appears as unexpectedly valuable. So I think that's true of all of us.
And diverse backgrounds and experiences as a group is just really critical in how, you know, how your group works.
I just like to add that, you know, it's we're sort of picking between the two of them. You know, everybody's gonna fight for somebody wanting to tear down a house in Webster Park, for example. But the ones that we've come up over and over again, at least since I've been here, are the sort of borderline ones, you know, that may not have any architectural, and maybe the social history, the National Register criteria doesn't really apply. But it has a social significance, which I know is one of the criteria for National Register listing. So it's the borderline ones, the ones that have been vacant for a while, that are full of junk, but they meet the criteria for being historic. And those are the ones, and then you get into issues like gentrification and all that sort of thing. So it's not always just tear it down or don't tear it down.
Right. And that's really where my pet peeve has been a lot, because we've got, that directly impacts the whole affordability issue. We've got some nice homes in different parts of the city, that have good bones and they're good structurally, but because they're not in the historical district, they're not considered as valuable And then people go into those areas, mainly in South and North Webster and then, what is that, east of the going down Marshall, you see all the houses that they're, and and then they tear those houses down and then they put up these huge houses. And first of all, that immediately smacks of the affordability issue because they're replacing them with $500,000 and $600,000 houses.
More than that.
More than that, yeah.
$1 million house.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I would not pay $1 million for some big, huge vinyl sided.
Absolutely. And so, and it's like, it's really putting those things out of the reach of the people that historically or the family, I call it, and this is actually a national phenomenon. It's called the missing middle, because there's so much of that going on that in communities all over the country, the middle class cannot afford to buy a home.
Can I ask, like, as a city, who's responsible? Like, what committee would be charged with making sure that we have enough affordable housing stock? Because when I joined this committee, it really was tear down or don't tear down based on this house's qualities, not on all those other questions that you're raising about affordability or a neighborhood, deal. It's really just, yes, is this house historically significant or in any way significant or not? And I think that's a really good point, though. I mean, when we're looking at the preservation of a city in general, it's not just about a house here or there. It's really about things like, broader in terms of like affordable housing, or maybe a little even more detailed about how we structure with the businesses or that kind of stuff. But I don't know who does that kind of work, because I don't think we do necessarily.
So one thing I want to mention is that we have started talking about conservation districts. So conservation districts are for anyone and everyone. A neighborhood who wants their neighborhood to be a particular way. And you could go with, we don't want whatever it is that's going to be allowed, whether it's, you maintain your street front, everybody's garage is in the back, that kind of thing. We all love that in Webster, and that's the rule. And then other people might say it doesn't fit here. We want to have that. We want everyone to not mow their lawn. You could have that on your street if that's what you want for your conservation district. But so you can make those districts and then have your rules. Obviously you have to have some agreement. Usually it's set up with some sort of 80% of people or something like that say okay and whatever, right? But it's very similar to a historic district in that it protects your area. And really, I hate to say it, but you're protecting it from outside developers, right? Because who cares what they want? They want to give you less money for your house.
Right, and then build a monster
And build this great big
sided
thing
with
that's,
cheap vinyl.
yeah, so they don't, and it's not their job, right, either to come in and baby Webster, and that's not their job. If we make it available to them to come and do that, why would they not? So the city, the city, all of us as a group have decided on certain rules for zoning and whatnot, and if they're within them, so you can limit that more. We could limit that more, but that's not been done.
I think that would be an excellent project for the historical preservation.
Yeah, and so really we
Because you
delayed it
present that.
because of the
Master
master
plan.
plan.
Yeah.
Comprehensive
The
plan.
comprehensive plan, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, that's,
Because we didn't
there's a
want,
section about that.
yeah, we didn't want to.
There is no, or there is.
Well, they're hoping, it was part of the beginning when they started this, that was a possibility to, again, to create more affordable housing is part of it too. And in some cities, it's just incredible. We're just getting going with this here, so.
Well, affordable housing comes up into rental housing because you can't keep homes affordable if you buy them.
Well, and then
So
the thing is and the unfortunate reality is words matter. And so when we even tried to, during my first term, look at diversifying the zoning so that we could have more multiple unit houses, and we were talking about, we weren't talking about throwing up a bunch of apartments and apartment complexes. We were talking about like, fee simple townhomes and single family attached townhomes or things like that, that could be, because a lot of the demographic, the younger people, they don't want a lot of yard work. You know, but they would like their own home. And so, but I say words matter, because as soon as you start talking about affordable housing, then the pushback we got and everything that they said, okay, you're trying to, we don't want Section 8. We don't want this in our backyard. We don't want this and that. And we weren't talking about low income housing, because low income, the LMI, the low to moderate income individual cannot afford to buy a property at these prices, period. Anywhere, right. We're talking about middle income families can't afford to buy. You know, now they can, you know, we can get middle income families in a 300,000 to 400,000. But when you start talking about 5, 6, 7, and 800,000, you're pricing people out. So yes, I totally agree with what you're saying. That was like the smack for me. It's like the only thing we seem to care about is the historical districts. What about these other districts where we're constantly tearing down perfectly good homes?
That has been one of the things that comes up repeatedly in our discussions, is that we only have certain parameters that this commission can work in, and those parameters are in the ordinance that guides what we can and cannot do. So, you know, it pains us that we see these really nice, well-maintained homes, and some of them are like $350,000 homes that some developer just bought that are in superb condition. The photographs are beautiful and they passed the inspection that was required, but they are being torn down for $1.5 million vinyl sided box. And unfortunately, these houses are over 50 years old, so they come to us, but unless they are historic or have the possibility of being historic, this commission does not have the power to do anything about it, because we have to operate in the law, in the ordinance that defines what we can and cannot do. And I think it's come up among us is like, what can we do to somehow broaden laws or create incentives for these houses to be saved, or create disincentives for them to be torn down, something that will help us, give us some teeth to save some of these really beautiful houses. But right now, our commission does not have the legal authority to do that. So, you know, as a council member and Renee talking about community vitality, maybe there's something y'all could do to research what's being done in other places in the country to help us try to save these really nice houses that are perfectly viable housing stock that younger people or empty nesters or something can afford.
I think the first thing to note is a lot of the things that dictate what you can do as a council, as a commission, can be changed. Okay, I mean, that's dictated by what whoever was on council at the time it was written dictated. Okay.
You know, there was a time not too long ago where a house had to be over 100 years old before we could even step in. So just the 50 years old was a big step forward. So if y'all have any other steps forward.
Because one of the things that I just proposed and we're looking at now, this is just as an example, because I really like the idea of creating the conservation districts, okay?
No one knows what that word means either, so it helps, right? Historic preservation sometimes has a bad name, but
And
conservation.
historic preservation, like I said, words matter. So historic preservation, people automatically think you're talking about the mansions up off of Elm and back down in there and everything. Conservation district, I think number one, ding, 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 seems obtainable and reachable and relatable.
And can be a grassroots thing.
Yeah.
Yes, and the people in the area can say, this is what we want. And it's not like a neighborhood has to try to come to city council and get the planning and zoning ordinances revised for the whole city.
Right.
Because
They agree.
that's just too big a mountain to climb.
Exactly.
And so this whole idea of conservation districts is grassroots. It can be based on smaller areas. And there are overlay districts, the conservation districts, once they go into effect, are overlay districts on the planning and zoning.
Mhm.
And some of them, in communities, I know like Atlanta has a lot of them, I think, and they do it like, within a district even, you know, say so Webster Park is really a very big district. And so say there's a group of homes that want something in particular, but you know, whatever the style is, because some places you would not be able to change the color of your house, or
Right.
this, that, everything else, right? And so maybe there's a group of homes and they want that. They would be able to do that as an overlay in their historic district and say, this group, we're going to truly keep this as a historic district because or whatever. But to me, I often thought that we should look more into the architectural significance of some of the houses in Webster Groves, because just because they're not beautiful to everyone or unattainable really often does not mean that they aren't architecturally significant.
Right.
And so I've worked for many years with a lot of buildings on military bases. And one of the hardest things to work on always was the housing that often looks fairly ordinary. But and I have done a lot of work in Honolulu where Pearl Harbor was the big event. And all of the military housing that's on Pearl Harbor on the base is historic then. And many times people would be like, what makes this historic? Why would it be historic? And my answer always was, this is where the people were. This is where someone was wondering, where's my husband and what happened and all those things. This is where they were. And they could hear what was going on. They could hear the planes. This is the everyday person, but not everyday person experience. And this is where they were and this is what they did. And so that in a way makes all of the different neighborhoods of Webster, those are people too.
Right, yeah, because even if you look at, because one of the things, looking at North Webster and South Webster, both of those are working class neighborhoods.
Yeah.
You know, and those little bungalow houses and South Webster has some of the cutest little brick, just, and to have those torn down and replaced by, so first of all, I would say, and I'll share this with you too first before I forget, because I already forgot once. Let's see. Because one of the things and this is an example, what we can't change, like county codes and things that have to do with safety and what have you, but a lot of the zoning that we have is because it was created for Webster, the Webster zoning. And so I just brought up in the last meeting about, you know, our need to address the requirements that you can't have front entry garages. Okay, well, that's being applied inconsistently all over the city. You know, and what it's doing is it's now creating affordability and sustainability issues, because I mean, there's one that's being built next to me and we're being told they can't have a front entry garage, whereas they're right across the street from 3 ranch houses with driveways and a front entry driveway, you know, or either you have, you know, blocks, and I live in North Webster, so you have a block over where the person is told they can't have a front entry garage, and then but down the street on the other end of the same street there's a front entry garage, you know. And even where the one is that's across from me, it's a concern because now they have to put a garage detached in the back of the house. The lot is 170 feet deep. They got to run concrete 170 feet to put a garage in the back, down a hill. And so all that runoff, and there's a house on the other side of that hill. So there's runoff, so not to mention the additional cost associated with having to do a rear entry garage as opposed to a front entry. Now, you may have we know that there's areas where you flat out you cannot have a front entry garage in the historical districts. None of those houses, or do that, but those they can afford that,
Yeah,
but
they
when
don't
you
have issues there.
they don't have issues with that. But when you're looking at some of these places in the neighborhoods in North and South Webster is where it's east going down Marshall. I mean, so anyway, my suggestion would be, as with that, I brought it to the board. We need to look at this. We need to make some changes because whatever justification we had for that zoning requirement, we were never given a clear explanation for it. And whatever the explanation was, it needs to be revisited.
I think that there's an example of what you were talking about in terms of conservation districts though, because I was around when they were talking about the zoning changes for their front entry garages, and most people didn't want them.
Yeah.
The reflected character of our city was rear garages.
Mhm.
And because it was a community engagement process, the board, planning commission, I don't know who started it, came down on the side of, okay, you can do front entry garages,
Mhm.
but they have to, and I don't know what the numbers are, but the front of the house has to be a certain distance from the garage.
Garage, yeah, like a snout house, where the garage sticks way out.
Right. You have to have guardrails around it. You can't have, because you see some of these houses and the facade is,
Just the garage.
Just the
Garage.
garage, yeah.
And also too, I was around during that debate and participated in it, and people were concerned about the frontage of the house being garage.
Right.
And then it looks like here the cars live here and the people that serve them are in the back.
Right.
And then you have a, 2 or 3 car front entry garage, and with that you have a large expanse of concrete for the driveway
Mhm.
that's right on the street, and it does undermine the character of the neighborhood.
Mhm.
And during that conversation, it was viewed as a good compromise
Mhm.
that the front entry garage could project a certain distance in front of the front facade,
Mhm.
but it needed to be blended into the front facade
Mhm.
with a porch.
Mhm.
And there were limits on how far it could extend.
Mhm.
And at the time, people were thinking, that's a good compromise.
Mhm.
And I actually agreed with that. And it also had to do with the percentage of houses on a street
Mhm.
within a certain area
Mhm.
that already had front entry garages.
Mhm.
And then there was also a compromise to allow side entry garages. So at the time, I mean, for those of us who were around with that debate, we felt like it was serving everybody's needs.
Mhm.
And I will just say aesthetically, it's not really always the best, especially like in my area where there's some front entry garages, and then you want to sit out on your porch in the evening and people leave their garage door open with their lights on, and we all have a lovely view of their stuff. Okay, so, and sometimes, they're not always finished with drywall, and it really does have a detrimental effect on the appearance. I appreciate what you are saying about those long driveways.
Mhm.
I live on 170-foot lot,
Mhm.
and I have a really long driveway, and let me tell you how I feel about shoveling that snow.
Right.
Okay, so,
And imagine if it's a hill.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
yeah,
so
yeah,
trying to get out of it in the
I get-
winter.
Yeah, it goes down to the back and you have to back up.
Yeah.
So I totally
It's
am
narrow.
sympathetic. Yes, it's
Yeah.
very narrow.
So your house is small, so.
Yes, and there's a retaining wall on one side, so it's
And a
really,
lot of the houses were built for
Yeah.
1929 cars.
yeah.
Right, okay.
There's a lot of them were
I
alleys.
am
The alleys
sympathetic
disappeared.
to your concerns, and it is a lot of pavement.
Everything was
But
behind it.
really, at the time, if it helps give you context
Mhm.
to that discussion, it was viewed as a good compromise.
Mhm.
So as it's revisited, I think it's important to keep those points in mind.
And I think we will, because I totally believe that there should be some guardrails around it, but I think it needs to be revisited because it's not being applied consistently,
Yeah. Well, the one thing that's always interesting is you actually, so they have a lot of details there, right? There was a lot of things, like to allow it in certain situations, you need to make sure that the person doesn't come in and build a 3-car garage and a door,
Right,
front
right,
door.
exactly.
you know,
Right.
because they will,
Exactly.
they will.
Right.
You have to think of everything that's bad
Mm-hmm,
and, you know,
mm-hmm.
what they would do, because, you know, and I'm gonna bring up one that we had the, situation of the duplexes on some lots, you know, that could be built. And for me, it was the size of those. There is no question the developer was gonna come in, build 2 $750,000 homes smack up to each other, this great big huge thing with a nice little house right here next door. It is now not,
That's
So
what's happening,
great,
that's what's happening the next
because-
year right now.
because they did that, you know, they were allowed to build such a large, so it was, they were being allowed to build something too big.
Mhm.
So the houses should be small. There's, you know, we
Mhm.
always act as though if it's small, well, it's something almost wrong with it or
Right.
something. There's nothing wrong with small. You know.
Right.
You have a perfectly nice small house.
Mhm.
There's,
That's a big subject we could go on. We
you
need
know,
to-
I'm just not a person who
that.
thinks bigger is better
But for
ever
this-
in my
this
life. I don't
frustrating.
know. I think in particular, I've often always say, you know, why not build a better quality house and a little smaller, but you know, that's another story, but
You're not a builder, that's why.
I'm an architect. So there you go.
I know, but I'm like,
I know, that's what
they
I-
hire you to design their big monster, you
Yes,
know?
I
it's
want
like-
everything nice. I can't necessarily afford it.
Mhm. So, I mean, they're
Yeah.
going out because that's what's happening with the one next to me. It's just like, it's gone from being 1,800 square feet to now 2,400 square feet. You know, because he's looking at cost per square foot and what he can sell it for. And I'm like, you know, how'd you go from 1,800 to 2,200, 2,400?
Yeah.
You know,
What's the race for?
right.
Money talk.
It's all about the profitability.
Yeah.
Of it. And I won't get on that soapbox, but
Yeah,
that's
it's gonna be
all it is.
And space is cheap for a builder. Just
Mhm.
space, that's cheap. The only thing that costs anything is the kitchen and the bathrooms kind of stuff. They just add a big room that's just walls. It doesn't really cost that much.
Mhm.
So,
We've had conservation districts kind of on the side of our agenda for a long time. So when do we propose we start building these things?
It was, we were advised that it would be a good opportunity to have it be part of the comprehensive plan,
Mhm.
because it can be parameters beyond just architectural style or housing size. It can be, other conservation
Mhm.
measures like, having rain barrels or, you know, that, it's a big subject. So it covers more than just historic or
Mhm.
more than just housing.
Mhm.
So the idea was that as part of the comprehensive plan, putting the mechanism in place for people to do conservation districts.
Mhm.
And that would be a good way in the, I'm trying to think of how to say this effectively and I'm struggling, as you can tell. More areas of concern can be addressed with conservation districts than just housing size. And by having it be a part of the comprehensive plan, the application of how conservation districts can be applied citywide could be more effectively studied and implemented. If that, I think I finally said what I was trying to. So, and that's kind of where we left, because we had quite a lot of discussion among us about how we were going to go about getting conservation districts in front of the council, and in front of the city. And then we were advised that the comprehensive plan would be the way to do that.
So when you were
Zoning.
attended any of the listening sessions, did you have an opportunity to discuss that there?
yeah, actually, I brought it up when I was, because I was the person from this that went, and I
Uh-huh.
brought it up. And
Okay.
he, you know, they said it was a good idea. I don't know what their intention is, you know, they're supposed to be coming back to
Okay.
us. Um,
That's what I don't understand. With the development of a conservation district, is that something that would be part of our agenda to propose boundaries for these things or ideas for these things, or is this more a grassroots thing that comes from the community that we propose? Like, you know, you guys have a similar aesthetic here. This should be a thing. You want to organize it on yourself, and if they don't, they don't. Is that
Yeah, it could be any, but it would be a grassroots type,
Right.
So I personally have always thought, you know, you could make the suggestion, because some of the places that do it, I mean, it's even in commercial areas of whatever would be, in which case it would need to probably be a suggestion from somebody in the city or something almost, or, you know, maybe someone would suggest it to someone. There would, anything architecturally would be reviewed by the Architectural Review Board, you know, so those people would know, but having some connection to this commission almost would probably be helpful just for at least for things to begin, because people wouldn't even know about it.
Right. That's what I kind of envisioned of just talking about this, is that like this commission could be instrumental in kind of developing that and getting the structure of it in place, so that then we can communicate to the community what this is and what opportunities are available through this vehicle, whether it's rain barrels or whatever. Because I just think that there should be some flexibility. I mean, even when the previous agreements or what have you were made regarding front entry garages, I don't know how long ago that was, but they're
20, I would say 20+ years.
Yeah, it was right when we moved to here.
yeah, it needs to be revisited.
Yeah.
You know, and looked at in a way, you know, in a different way. But so, I mean, I would definitely, I mean, and I'm gonna bring it up in the work session. But I would truly say, you know, if we could start with, because I'm gonna try to get some guidance then on what's the best way to proceed forward. Do we start here with what we think that would look like, and then present that, you know, and let them know that there's something that we would like to have incorporated into the comprehensive plan? You know.
Typically with a comprehensive plan, because I worked on lots,
Okay.
is, you know, the conservation plan is sort of a guideline, it's a vision.
Mhm.
The zoning ordinance is the implementation, of how
Right.
you implement that.
Mhm.
So, you know, it would be probably, I'm speculating 100%. You put a whole section in on conservation districts, explain what they are, maybe give some examples of where they worked and where they didn't, and,
Mhm.
you know, for whatever reason. And then, you know, make an action item to codify this into zoning.
Mhm.
And so it wouldn't necessarily be in the comp plan that says thou shalt have conservation districts. That would be enforced through the modifications to the zoning ordinance. That's
Because we don't have to
enforced.
have a comprehensive plan to
Do the conservation.
do the conservation.
And they're different
You
everywhere.
don't, but then you're
Yeah.
throwing out the comprehensive plan as a guiding document.
Yeah, but I mean, but I'm just saying, what I wouldn't want to do is like stagnate our creation of this. You know, I think it's important that we communicate to the, what's their names? I forgot. That's managing the comprehensive plan.
Oh, the Lakota group.
The Lakota group, yes, that this is, you know, again, because I think that there's another listening session coming up. Okay, you know, and again, to if you're available, is there listening sessions on that?
There's one on Thursday afternoon, and then there, I think, are a few.
Okay. I mean, I think again, that's a good opportunity to be there and bring that up again, and I will bring it up in the city council meeting next week. So I mean, I think that the first thing we gotta do is talk about it, and you brought it up, bring it up again, you know, and because the whole purpose of them is we need to let them know what we want to see as well.
Where are these listening sessions advertised? Are they on the city's?
I think we're still firming up.
Yeah, I think it was on the Friday pages, wasn't it? They came out, I think that was.
I didn't see it.
I just saw it somewhere, but I was looking
Yeah,
at
I was
like,
gonna say, yeah, it wasn't
2
that
days.
early.
I think it's in the Webster plan. When I was looking for something about tonight, and I found it. I said, oh yeah, I thought yours.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hijack the meeting.
I mean, we're personally, I shouldn't speak for myself. I am delighted because we, you know, people are like, oh, she's banging her drum again, conservation district. Yeah. I'm really delighted that, we're getting some momentum on that because I kind of felt like we were in a holding pattern and it was a little difficult.
Yeah.
Because I live in what I think is a really cool 1922 bungalow
Mhm.
that is just awesome. And the small home, historic home next to me was torn down, and there is an enormous
Oh,
gray vinyl sided house that is now worth about $900,000. All I can see out of the side of my house now is gray siding. I can no longer see the sunrise. I can't, that side of my house doesn't get sun until about 10:30 or 11.
Mhm.
And it really does undermine the desirability and the livability of my home.
Right.
And I'm concerned now about what's gonna go on the other side. It will be like living in the bottom, having your home in the bottom of a well.
Mhm.
And we see this going on, and I talk with my other neighbors who say, we love our cottages and we are tired of being surrounded
Mhm.
by these huge monstrosities and not having ventilation, not having sun, not having views that have been taken away from us. And it makes us feel like we don't want to live here anymore.
Mhm.
And when people get frustrated and they feel their quality of life has been undermined, they move, and then we lose another small home.
And another box goes up.
Yes, it does. And so, just from this commission, from our discussions, our frustrations about not having any authority to prevent these tear downs, and just from the people who live in these wonderful cottages that a lot of people put a lot of care and money and love into restoring and having beautiful gardens. And we feel like the quality of our lives and our homes and all of our work are being undermined by developers from the outside who come in to make a buck and laugh on their way to the bank and buy. So, it's something I hear a lot about in my area from my neighbors.
well, Kirkwood really struggled with that issue, the big lots with the tiny houses, so we might talk to Jonathan or whoever the planner there and see how they resolve it, because I think they have come to some kind of conclusion.
Like it's just, Kirkwood's just a wrecking board every day.
Is it? I don't know.
It's
Something.
I used to live there. I grew up there. I drive through it, and it's not even recognizable to me anymore. Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah, so, if they have taken steps to mitigate that, I would be curious to know what they are
And go the other way.
and how they're being implemented and if they're being effective. Yeah. So, looking into it, I think would be valuable.
Wondering from the city's perspective, from the council, is there a motivation to slow down developers? I mean, I can understand there may be an increase in like property tax value, stuff like that, and maybe there's some conflict there in the council, I don't know. But is that the general drive to slow down developers tearing down small homes and building big homes? Because you're on, I think around this table, we're all pretty unanimous that that's what we like to stop.
Right now, I believe you have a council that is sensitive to that. Who knows what the council is gonna look like in 5, 6, 10 years. But my thing is get it while you can. And and then, it's in place, and if they want to undo it, then that's something that they have to deal with down the road. But I mean, I just think that while we have the opportunity and the willingness to support that we look to see what we can get done. And again, it's good timing because we're doing the comprehensive plan, because that was something that hadn't been touched, I think, since 1967. And so, I mean, I think we have an opportunity.
Just looking at the demolitions that have happened in the last year, I wouldn't be surprised if there's condos all along Kirkham in the next 10 years. That's where all of the demolitions have been, all along Kirkham. There's neighborhoods that are owned by single developers over there. And, some of those, like, I always think there's this little neighborhood, I think it's Corona Court. It's right off the court.
Yeah,
On this side of Kirkham.
right.
That when we first moved here, it's been like 20 years. It's cute as could be, little bungalows all over the place. And now you drove over there, it's really not cute anymore. It seems like a lot of rental property not being maintained and that kind of stuff, and it's just looks to me like the kind of thing that it's gonna be on our tail pretty soon to demolish this and this and this, and that's the kind of thing where I'm thinking of like a historic preservation district. I mean, I don't know what the history of that street is, but it's very cute and very distinct, whatever that was built for or when is really nice.
And we
to
might
me-
be too late for that
It
street.
might be.
That street,
Because
yeah.
it's only because it's owned by those streets, those houses, so much of that is owned by one developer.
Where is it off
You know.
of? What is it?
Right off of, Newport and Kirkham.
You know that park that he just renovated?
Yeah.
It's right on the corner.
Yeah, so you have that little park where they put the ball field and you little
Right.
playground pavilion.
I know
It's
what you're
right
talking
directly
about
across
now.
that street. It's a
Yeah.
dead end street
Right.
and they're all cute little bungalows.
Yeah, my good friends of mine grew up there and it's just like, yeah, it's
kind
Part of the problem really is the zoning allows a
Yes,
person to build such a
exactly.
large home.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if
That's
it's
where
not
you gotta
changed,
start more
nothing's
than-
gonna change.
Cause even
So-
when we did the, whatever area ratio you call, I still think that allowed for too large of a house.
Floor area.
On a lot. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that still allowed for
Way
too
too
large
big.
of a.
That and setbacks. I mean, you can write setbacks into the rules too.
Yeah.
So I don't, I'm sure that they wouldn't issue a variance for setbacks, so they have to follow in with the existing laws.
And I think that where you have conservation districts that we're talking about, we implement, you look at the area, what is the forced area ratio?
The floor area.
Floor area
They call it
ratio.
the FAR, the FAR.
Far, yeah,
Area
that,
ratio.
yeah, you actually make that a condition of that conservation district too, because then.
So, which is something that has to be really put into the law or the
Mhm.
city code
Mhm.
of making it a conservation district, that you can change that.
Mhm.
And in particular, when you have a position of people that you're taking away their rights,
Mhm,
their property rights.
mhm,
Because, you know, for instance, the city can stop someone from tearing down a historic property.
mhm,
They can,
mhm,
absolutely can.
mhm,
And they would have to take the city to court to
mhm,
tear it down.
mhm.
But no one's ever done that. We've always allowed them to tear it down.
Okay,
So, you know, you can do that. You can say, no,
mhm,
you can sell it or use it, whatever you want to do.
but you can't.
That's up to you. It's not your right
But that only
to
applies
buy
to the
it and
historic
tear it down.
district.
That's not your right.
That only applies to the historic district.
What'd you say?
That only applies to the historic district.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and you get up in arms about it.
But yeah,
Like
at the
that
same
one house
time.
over by the bed and breakfast that it was like a
On
big
Tuxedo.
house. And I don't remember, wherever the B and B is. You know, there was a big old house on a big old lot. And they wanted to tear it down.
The,
On Tuxedo.
But the Tuxedo and Sunset,
B&B,
yeah, right between Atlanta and Tuxedo. Anyway, it was a big house on a big lot and they wanted to tear it down and put two new houses on it. And everybody went crazy, but it's like, you know, if you wanted, it's your property, if you want to fix that, buy it. You know, that's sort of what it
right,
comes
it
down
is a
to.
matter of, I can't find anyone to buy this. So
Right.
usually that would be where it goes to, and we don't usually go that far here.
Right.
Whereas, so all these houses that are like a cute little house, you can find someone to buy it.
Mhm,
Yeah.
You know, it's really not a problem to buy a small home.
Right.
What's
So,
the deal with the church, with the, somebody wanted to put 3 houses on that lot?
That- it was
And
being-
they said they couldn't do
No,
3.
no, it was being marketed.
that you
And
could.
it was being
Okay, I thought
marketed
there
as
was
a
a-
tear down and it said it was a potential of 3 homes.
Okay.
And then Mara reviewed the zoning and said, there's no way you can get 3.
Right.
You
so
could
what-
get
so
2,
she-
but it was being marketed that
Well, I
way.
know, but when push
Nobody,
came to shove, nobody could do it. The
Well,
third one.
that's it, but it
Right,
was
that's
still
what I was
being
talking about.
marketed as a tear down.
Right,
That's
but-
just something the realtor was trying to sell it
Right,
as.
so
There
somebody
wasn't
actually-
anybody who was actually
Interesting.
interested in doing that. That was just a come on that the realtor,
Right. I
proposed.
realize that, but I'm saying, but there was a stopgap there. Somebody could have, it wasn't gonna get you know, there weren't gonna be 3 houses built there.
yeah, but still the whole focus was to save the church rather than how many houses would
Ideally,
be
yeah.
constructed on the lot. One of the things that I also think is really important is, and it would help kind of mitigate the big house, little house phenomena, and you can just, I'm gonna just draw a really silly, crude little sketch here, but if there can be parameters set up that as a house gets larger, taller, the next story has to be set back a certain distance. And the taller they want to go, every successive story needs to be set back. And that way, the light and air can still get to the smaller home. And these kinds of things can be written into the
Yeah.
zoning code.
And they often are.
And they are, I mean, Clayton has some. You can't just build like straight up. They require certain setbacks, step backs as properties get higher. And that really helps mitigate the sort of the huge house, little house phenomenon. And I think that's something that can be looked at as part of the P and Z code as well. It's pretty effective.
Actually, that's yeah. I didn't think about that. We don't have that here.
No,
We
not to,
should.
not to
Yeah, we
my,
should.
not to my knowledge. And I've heard people say, well, developers want to max out the lot. Well, they can max it out in a different configuration. I mean, we're architects, we can help them out with that, you know? And it also makes for more interesting architecture
Yeah.
when they have to step back instead of just
The box.
the vinyl box with a big pile of front facing gables on,
Right.
you know?
Right.
It just,
Gables just
Yeah.
randomly. located.
yeah, it's so, you know, it makes for more interesting architectural character when there is a requirement to step it back. I think the sides and of the home as well as the front would be more interesting. So I think there's a lot of wins with looking at incorporating this kind of thing into the planning and zoning code.
I was wondering if anybody had knowledge of that house on Gray that the woman bought and wanted to tear it down and build new. And somehow that was, I mean, this is the story I got. That was denied and she ended up putting a addition on the side that looked like the original house. Do you know the house I'm talking about?
So the problem is.
I walk by their switcher.
And I just wondered, how did they stop her from tearing down the house and doing the alternative, which was putting the addition on the side? Gee, it's kind of close to Gray and Swan. It's on the east side of the street. It's a white
So
frame.
if the architectural review board says no, you cannot do it, the council then can say, yes, we don't see any problem with it. So that's what happened there.
Yes, it was. It actually was.
No, I mean,
That's what happened.
They,
the council
The
told her
council said she could do what she wanted
she
to do.
could, and so, but what made her change her mind about tearing down the house and?
to my knowledge, there was never a
No,
proposal to tear
She wanted
it
to
down.
completely tear down the house,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
instead she just used part of it. But
They
So it was
used,
her, just her idea to reverse herself on that and just do an addition instead.
I remember that, I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, it was quite a while back.
Yeah, I remember that,
it was,
part of the ARB.
yeah, and it was,
she came a few times.
and it was,
Pretty.
I know, I heard all. I heard
yeah,
all.
and I will say that the architect did a beautiful
Yeah.
design.
Oh,
It was
It's a
beautiful
nice
design,
looking house.
but it wasn't in compliance with the historic
Mhm.
preservation guidelines.
Oh,
And
And
was one of
that's-
the only small houses in that
Yes.
area, which really irritated me because it felt like you could use this house, anyway, it really, sorry.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bring up a sore spot.
But
I just,
that is what happened,
Okay.
and the ARB ruled against it. And there were
Yeah.
parameters that said, hey, you need to do this, you need to preserve that screen porch. You can go ahead with
Yeah.
what you want, but these are the modifications that would be required to meet the historic preservation guidelines. They chose to not do that and to take an appeal to city council, which they did. And I understand, Joe, I don't know if you were there, but it was a 3-hour discussion about what to do. And then there was a final vote taken that allowed what was built to be built. So, yeah, I remember that quite clearly. I think Angela, you were there as
Which,
well.
yeah, it was. And one thing about that is, so that took a property out of the historic district. That took a contributing feature out of the historic district. Whether it's a lovely home or not is irrelevant to that.
right.
And the less historic district is there, the more they could widen Elm if they wanted to. So, you know, it's something people should think about a little bit. So it should have, technically, to me, if you're going to take a property out of the historic district as a contributing feature, it should be here that is decided. And that and, you know, I mean, the city council, obviously, I know they had a long discussion about it and everything. But in some ways, it should have been kind of like, well, you know, there was all sorts of opportunities to do stuff. It was more a matter of, I want what I want. And one individual, one little person can do that. And they said, oh, and, you know, at the end of the day, okay, I actually have no idea why. We have to ask them individually. That's that's a hard decision to make.
And
Yeah.
fortunately, that doesn't happen very often.
No,
Yeah.
it actually doesn't.
So I always perceived it as a win for the city, but it wasn't really a win.
It
Oh,
depends.
no, not at all.
Okay.
Sounds a little
It wasn't,
like a
the only thing good about it is that it is a nice looking house.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, at least it's not some just big old box. It's not, it's not that.
But there are, in order to have an historic district there, I mean, you know, there's the whole nomination in the historic studies, and there are what are contributing resources within the district. And the more of those contributing resources that are lost, it puts the district in jeopardy, like Angela was saying. So it's something that needs to be approached carefully.
So I think our marching orders are for you guys to sort of organize what you would want the conservation district zoning proposal or what have you to look like. I will bring it up at the meeting in our work session Tuesday, and then please have representation at the listening session that's coming up, so that you can bring it up again to the comprehensive plan. So we make sure we have that documented in there. And then, you know, we just keep pushing
Keep bringing it.
to keep bringing it up.
I was trying to pull the dates up, of the times. My phone is not acting nice today. I will email you guys the schedule.
Oh, that'd be great.
I would say
Save
that Thursday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's tired. He said, I'm off work.
Locked me out twice.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway. What else do we have on here? We do have the Sustainability Commission thing, and that I was put in touch with the chairperson for the Sustainability Commission, and that person is going to bring up the notion of doing something that has to do with the, you know, historic preservation and sustainability and together to the committee to see if they're interested. And I cannot remember what the date of that meeting is. It seems like maybe the 19th.
19th, and I think, is that a Monday? I think it's a Monday at
Yes.
4 o'clock.
Yeah, it's 4
That's in my head for some reason.
Oh, yeah.
We need to
4
verify
o'clock.
On
that.
19th of August,
19th of August,
That is
Monday.
in fact a Monday. Yes.
Yeah,
next week.
Oh, yeah, that's Monday. Yeah,
Monday at 4.
Yeah,
I think it's at 4, isn't it?
yeah, it's
I
at 4
don't
o'clock.
know.
I remember. So it's.
Sorry,
You just don't need it.
are you asking us to be at that meeting?
I'm sorry.
Are you asking us to be at that meeting on Monday?
Oh, that's just for the Sustainability Commission. I was
Oh.
thinking about attending just because I was considering actually emailing back the chairperson to say I was going to attend to see if what he said. Maybe they want to talk about us or something.
You all could also invite them.
Yeah, right. He was gonna see if anyone's actually interested in that kind of thing. I mean, it is a sustainability commission or committee or whatever they're called, council. I don't know. So, you know,
Commission,
some people,
Sustainability Commission.
think of it differently. They do think of it like they're just looking at the trees. They don't really have an interest in the buildings as much, so.
Well, there's so many things involved in it.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Sustainability.
It's kind of a big topic.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there could be value
So
in
everything
you
sidewalks
seeing
to
where,
trees,
where there's
condos.
similarities in what you're, as you talk about, where there's symmetry in what you're doing, whereas you talk about the, conservation districts. I'm
Exactly.
sure they would have great input into,
Exactly.
you know, what that might look like.
Right, because then I think of the no mow
No more April.
You know, there were places as I walked my dog on them. Some of the neighborhoods were much more into it than other
Right.
neighborhoods. It's like you got one lawn sticking out almost, you know. So you could have neighborhoods, maybe a neighborhood that says, we are not doing that.
Mhm.
We want to go with the regular rule of however many inches it is,
Mhm.
but, or the opposite. We don't want anyone to mow their lawn,
Mhm.
whatever.
Give us a break on code enforcement.
I was gonna say, the only thing about that is a whole lot of people didn't like stop at the end of April. You know, they continue in the
They
May.
take it as
I
Don't have to mow my lawn.
know, exactly, it's been over a year.
Just leave that sign up, nobody will notice.
Exactly.
Very good, thank you. I think this is a real valuable discussion to kind of give us some momentum on our next project.
Yeah. All right, so then, is. And
Do we know if there's any houses requests for next month?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I think that people are, I look on Zillow here and there and see what's for sale, and what's in particular this morning. Anyway, a lot of them are for sale and look all of a sudden, look fixed up for sale. Rather than, you know, sort of like pushing stuff around like it's garbage. So that's very promising.
And sometimes, you know, the real estate will say, you know, perfect for, you know, tear down.
Exactly.
They do that in other wealthy Frontenac and that sort of thing. They
I
say,
think prices are a little high, because,
Right.
you know, developers do not pay the high price, they're not about to do that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that tear down too much in Kansas, especially in Webster.
no, no.
But I look at some of those things and I think, oh my gosh, if my house is worth so much, I think I better go money back in. I better go clean up.
No, I just wanted to request, like, when it first started, there would be like 4 or 5 houses every week. And there's no way to look at 4 or 5 houses in a week, because we get the agenda like the week before, and there'd be no way to really look at each one. We haven't had that problem since, but if there are houses, could we get them earlier so we can actually, or have a way, because one other thing with this committee is we can't network. So we can't be like, you know, I'm gonna go to the library, you go to the city hall, you know, you're gonna go, we can't do this. I have no idea what everybody else is doing.
Right.
We're all doing the same stuff. And it seems so inefficient. And we have a week to do it.
Yeah.
So is there a better way to plan that? Like, can we, because we can talk about it here, but we can't talk about it when we leave the room, right?
That's right.
That's right.
So I
So
think
how
that's
do we do that
something,
better? Because it's really too much.
It is, and so, in the past, you know, it would be that we would have that certain amount of information about whatever is being torn down, and then a recommendation. Tear it down or whatever, look into it more, and that's when our part sort of kicks in, so.
Some we never see.
Oh.
I know it's a question.
But so. You know, we could hold over more of them as, you know, just as a thing, and in a way, do what you're saying, kind of. Make sure we divide up the work from, look at all certain kinds of things, make
It'd be
sure those are
great to
looked at and
have-
discuss, kind of figure out what exactly those points are to look at.
Enough next month's propose, like tear down proposals at this meeting, and then we have a month where we can at that meeting, talk about who's gonna do what on what houses. And then talk about it, for example, we find at the next meeting. So give us a month to work on it.
When
There's a bunch.
Ann was the chairman, a lot of times she would go to newspapers.com. Remember, she would do all that research on her own?
Yeah.
And then she would bring it up. So, you know, we've done it in the past.
Ancestry.com, newspapers, I'll do all
Yeah.
that stuff, and it's just, and a lot of times, like, she would be presenting the same stuff that I found, or, you know, it just didn't make sense.
Well, and it's hard too, because we have a limited amount of time, so we get the demolition request, we
Yeah.
hold it for a stay, then we have our assignments, but then we really don't get to confer
No.
before a decision needs to be
Right.
made.
Right.
And so that lack of being able to effectively share what each individual has found kind of puts us at a disadvantage.
Is there a required amount of time, for which the decision has to be provided, like?
There's some sort of rules, I'm not sure, but you know, it would be, and so they have to have their request in by a certain point. But in a way, like what you're saying, it would almost be nice if the request came in 2 days before or the day of our meeting, we just see like, okay, let's all discuss it and just divvy up the work of what to do for the next month, rather than it being like we receive all this information and we're supposed to
2
go over
days.
it in a week
Yeah,
and
okay.
decide, and then we haven't even talked to each other, so then, you know, it's kind of, so the process could be a little bit different, but just almost, you know, draw it out just a little bit more. It's not that much
I
more.
like the deadline, like the day before this meeting for proposals for demolitions, then we see that list. And then anything that comes after today would be brought up at the next meeting.
Get marked.
I don't know if that's enough time though, because what Mara always used to do was some of that research though. She would look on newspapers.com to see if they were mentioning it and things like that, and then she'd compile that into our packet.
Yeah, we
item.
get a packet. We
Yeah,
start-
and then she would say, well, based on ABC XYZ, staff recommends,
What was more.
yeah, yeah.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, staff, based on these findings, preliminary findings recommends, holding this over for additional research.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna get those anymore.
We're not gonna, yeah.
No,
that's a-
we don't know that, so we have a new person. And what I would suggest is Robert will be your liaison. Talk to him.
Yeah.
This is your
Right.
opportunity to restructure whatever it is that you'd like to take a step further. He's very amenable and he loves staffing, so I think that you will be very pleasantly pleased with, so, you know, talk to him. Don't,
And I mean, I'll bring that up too, because just for me personally, if you want to tear the house down, you need to give us time to look at it.
So that's what
I
I
think
was saying.
that's.
You know, I mean, it's
that's-
just, yeah, I don't like the
That's-
idea.
that's-
You want to tear the house down and I'm rushed to make a decision.
Yeah.
No, it's gonna, so that's what I have a note down here too, to ask, what is dictating how long we have to provide a decision once an application has been submitted for demolition? Because we need to do our due diligence.
Right.
But somebody needs to read the zoning code.
Yeah, it's, I
It's
mean,
in there
it's
someplace.
actually, I believe that it is in the ordinance for this commission that states how long we have for review and what we can and cannot do, if I'm remembering it
There were some
right.
houses we delayed, that one on,
That can be done by, we created
Oh,
those.
Yeah.
Ask for like-
That
can be
times and.
Yeah.
And it needs to be maybe revised a
I
little,
don't know.
how it's
I don't
done.
know.
Just because there's not, because I've never felt there's any need to rush it. It's not like we're gonna wait 3 years.
No.
We're talking about like a month,
A month. Talk about a month, right.
really. If we just had an extra month involved in the whole thing, it would have, because at the end of that month, we might decide, you know, I found some good stuff and I'd like to look more.
Right.
That's
Okay.
fine to me, but that's what we should be allowed to do. I'm glad you brought that up.
Mhm.
Yeah, good point.
Okay. All right. That's time. Let's take up a floor.
All right, so and that's it. Did I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. And opposed, votes in the- Thank you. All right.